Right now, if Social Security decides they overpaid you, even by mistake, even years ago, even if it wasn't your fault, they can take half your monthly check. Not 10%, half, and they don't need your permission to start doing it. Here's what you're going to learn in the next 10 minutes. How this rule actually works, why it's changed 3 times in the last 2 years, what an overpayment notice looks like, and why so many people ignore it at the worst possible time, and this is the part most videos skip, exactly what you can do in writing to stop the withholding or lower it before it ever touches your check. Stick around for that last part because it's the difference between losing half your income for months and only losing a small piece of it. Let's start with what an overpayment actually is. It happens when Social Security pays you more than you were owed. Maybe you went back to work part-time and your earnings pushed you over a limit. Maybe you got married or a dependent turned 18 or a spouse passed away and nobody updated your file in time. Sometimes it's not on you at all. The agency processes something late, or someone at Social Security just enters the wrong number. It happens more than people realize, and when it does, you get a letter in the mail demanding repayment, often for thousands of dollars, sometimes going back years. Now here's where it gets important. What happens if you don't respond to that letter has changed dramatically since 2024, and a lot of people are still working off old information. Back in March 2024, Social Security capped automatic withholding at 10% of your monthly benefit. That was seen as protective. Nobody was losing their whole check over a paperwork error. Then in March 2025, the agency reversed course and briefly went back to withholding 100% of your benefit until the debt was paid off. For some retirees, that meant your Social Security check dropped to zero. That lasted less than a month because of serious pushback from advocacy groups and members of Congress. So by late April 2025, Social Security settled on the rule that's still in place right now in 2026, a default of 50% withholding for retirement, survivor, and disability benefits. That's what people mean when they say half your check. It's not a rumor. It's the current default policy. There is one important distinction here. This 50% default applies to what's called Title II benefits. That's retirement benefits, survivor benefits, and Social Security disability insurance. If you receive supplemental security income, SSI, the withholding rate is different. That one stayed at 10%. So if you're on regular retirement benefits, this is the rule that applies to you. Let's make this concrete with numbers. Say your monthly Social Security check is $2,000, and Social Security says you were overpaid and owe them $4,000. Under the current default, they will withhold $1,000 a month, half your check, until that $4,000 is paid back. That means for 4 months, you're living on $1,000 instead of $2,000. For someone relying on that check to cover rent, medications, or utilities, that's not a small adjustment. That's a real financial gap, and it starts automatically if you don't respond. And that's the key phrase, if you don't respond, because you do have real options here, and this is the part that actually matters. When Social Security sends that notice, you have 2 separate paths with 2 separate deadlines, so pay attention to this part. If you disagree that you were overpaid at all, you think the amount is wrong or it shouldn't exist, you can file what's called a request for reconsideration using form SSA 561. You have 60 days from getting that notice to file it. If instead you agree you were overpaid, but you weren't at fault and paying it back would cause real hardship, you can file a request for waiver using form SSA 632. Good news here. There's no strict deadline to file a waiver. You can technically do it anytime, but here's the part that matters most for your wallet right now. If you file either the reconsideration or the waiver within 30 days of the notice, Social Security pauses the withholding entirely while they review your case. Wait longer than that, and the withholding can start before you even get an answer. There's also a third option if you just want a smaller monthly hit instead of a full dispute. That's form SSA 634, Request for Change in Overpayment Recovery Rate, where you simply ask for less than 50% based on your actual budget. There's also genuinely good news for smaller overpayments. If your overpayment is $2,000 or less and you believe you weren't at fault, Social Security has a simplified process. You can often start that conversation with a single phone call to 1-800-772-1213 instead of filling out the full waiver form. Now let's talk about the myth that trips people up more than anything else. The myth is this: if it was Social Security's mistake and not mine, I don't actually owe the money. That feels fair, but it's not how the rule works. Even if the overpayment happened because Social Security made an error, a late update, a data entry mistake, anything on their end, you can still legally owe that money back. being not at fault doesn't automatically cancel the debt. What it does is give you a real basis to request a waiver, but you have to actually request it. Nobody at Social Security is going to waive it for you automatically just because it wasn't your fault. Silence is treated as acceptance, and that's when the 50% withholding starts. So here's what to actually do with all of this, starting today. First, if you get any letter from Social Security mentioning an overpayment, do not set it aside. Open it, read the amount, and note the date on it. Second, act inside that response window. Don't wait weeks to decide what to do, because once withholding starts, stopping it takes more effort than pausing it in the first place. Third, decide which path fits you. Are you disputing that you were overpaid at all with Form SSA 561? Are you asking for a smaller monthly withholding with Form SSA 634? Or are you asking for a full waiver with Form SSA 632 because it truly wasn't your fault and repaying it would hurt you financially? Fourth, put your request in writing and keep a copy. And if the situation feels complicated, call Social Security directly or talk to a benefits counselor before assuming the worst. Quick, honest note before we wrap up. I'm not a Social Security representative, a financial advisor, or an attorney, and this video is general information, not advice for your specific case. Overpayment rules can vary depending on your exact situation, and policies can shift again. Before you make any decision about a real notice you've received, verify the current details on SSA.gov, call Social Security directly, or talk to a licensed professional who can look at your specific numbers. If this helped you understand what's actually going on with these letters, hit subscribe because I cover exactly this kind of thing, the rules nobody explains clearly, every week. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever gotten an overpayment notice from Social Security? And if so, what happened when you responded? Let me know below. It genuinely helps other people watching this figure out what to expect.